This is brought to you by John Daniel and Partners LLP.
Welcome to today's webinar on data protection and security. I know it's an hot topic right now on our social media platforms. We have seen clubs being fined. We have seen schools being fined. And so I think the most important thing for us is to know what is expected of us in terms of data protection and security for our SMEs. And for that reason, we have this webinar. I am hopeful that by the end of this meeting, we will be able to learn and be able to apply to our SMEs, and we'll be able to know our expectations in terms of data security, privacy, and protection. So I think I can introduce our speaker. Our speaker today is John Thumbi. John Thumbi is one of us, is a colleague in projects and has a vast knowledge on data security and protection. And so we believe is the best person to tackle this topic. Yes, so let me take this opportunity and welcome John Thumbi. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Mercy, and good evening to everyone. I hope your day is coming along quite okay. Today we'll be tackling a very important topic to SMEs in this era. Many cyber crimes that are happening around us. So to begin with, we'll be looking at what cybersecurity is. Again, we are asking ourselves, why should we be concerned about the whole issue of data security, protection, and privacy? Again, we need to ask ourselves, how do we know that we are under a cyber attack at any time? Then later we can be able to see the measures we can put up to mitigate the cybersecurity risks, and also the legal and regulatory compliance insofar as data protection is concerned. And finally, we look at what will happen if we don't comply to the applicable regulation. So welcome as we begin our today's webinar. If we begin by asking ourselves, what is cybersecurity? And cybersecurity, we can say, it is how we defend our devices, our networks, our systems from mainly malicious attacks. And malicious attacks, we know that they can come from different sources. They can be from viruses. They can be from spywares. They can be from even some phishing attacks from external sources. And we know this is an evolving phenomenon across the globe. And so SMEs in Kenya, since they don't operate in an island, whatever happens globally or regionally, in one way or the other, will find its way into our businesses. So it's something that we need to keep up with, to update ourselves on what is happening, so that we are better prepared to make sure that we have the right measures to safeguard our businesses. And this is a matter that has majorly been contributed by the growing digital economy, not only in Kenya, even Africa, and even across the globe, because many businesses are in a race to take their services online. particularly after COVID-19 pandemic. Businesses had to come up with ways and strategies to ensure that they are able to reach to many customers through leveraging technology and also the digital platforms. So that alone means that by leveraging that, businesses, they are able to increase their revenues, their market share, but also to mention that even with the benefits, we also have some negative sides of exposing our businesses online. And like we shall see, if we don't have the right measures in place, we may not get the full benefit, or rather, the benefits may be outweighed by the negative repercussions if we don't have the right measures to protect our businesses and information. So meaning, as businesses and SMEs, we need to have a very robust cybersecurity strategy that ensures we are steps ahead in terms of the threats that may come externally and even internally, so that we don't end up like we shall see, we don't end up incurring a lot of costs which are basically associated with the exposure to these threats. So Kenya National Bureau of Statistics conducted a survey, an economic survey a few months ago this year. And there were some statistics that they released in the area of cyber security. And the main information or the main statistic was that online crime continued to increase. And the incidents doubled from 339.1 million in 2021 to 700 million in 2022. And that tells you the magnitude of these cyber attacks. And the most common ones were the distributed denial of services, or DDoS, and the malware attacks. Distribution denial of service, it's an attack that tries to overwhelm a system or a network with traffic from different sources, so that the right for people who are supposed to access maybe a service from a certain system, for example, or a certain platform, they are not able to do so. And we can remember just recently, like a month ago, such an attack happened to our national e-citizen platform, whereby such an attack was executed. And citizens were not able to access the services for, I think, some hours or some days. And also we have the malware attacks. Malware attacks generally means programs that are malicious, such as viruses, spywares, that are mainly designed to corrupt the integrity of information that we are having in our machines, in our servers, and so on. And within this economic survey from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, 2022 alone, we had around 163.9 million malware attempts, which was followed closely by the distributed denial of service attacks at 82.7 million. And this can show us how serious the attackers are with regard to what businesses and individuals have as their personal data. So in this era of digital um, we have a lot of many things that are taken to the digital platforms, and a lot of data is out there. So these attackers, they find it of economical value to them, like to attack such data, and they can use it for their own benefit, especially in the black market. So it means that if we have to keep such data, that is very key to our businesses, to our clients, we need to have robust measures in place to ensure that such attacks they are not successful, and when they happen, we are able to arrest the matter quite swiftly, and we're able to restore our systems back in place without so much loss. The other thing, we want to check the price. What is the price that we pay when our cybersecurity mechanisms that we have, they are vulnerable? If we are vulnerable, it means that the attackers can easily execute attacks and get unauthorized access to data that is very crucial and very sensitive. And it means that we suffer financial costs, and financial costs, there are several. We have seen people who have been taken to court. So when, for example, an attacker attacks financial information of a company, and they may use that to do some other crimes with that information, and lawsuits are made, we may end up paying people a lot of money. And in such a manner, we are going to lose a lot of money. The other thing is reputational damage. When these attacks are successful and our clients, our customers cannot trust us with the data that we are holding on their behalf, for example. So they are not going to have that belief, that confidence that when we are dealing with these guys, our data will be safe, our information will be safe. So meaning we are going to lose business out of that reputational damage. And you can also relate with system downtimes. If, for example, what happened in the e-citizen platform, I believe government was not able to collect much of what it collects around that time because of those system downtimes that were occasioned by the attacks. So financial costs, they are huge, especially when these attacks are successful. The other bit is when such attacks happen, for example, they happen to one business, a business that has partnership with other businesses. For example, a supermarket that gets supplies from different suppliers. It has also stored data information of its clients. So an attacker can access not only the information of that particular supermarket, but they may extend the data breach and get very critical and very sensitive information related to the clients and even the suppliers. And they can be able even to extend the attack to make more beneficial demands. The other bit is identity theft. We've had in the past people whose financial information, their financial details have been taken by strangers. Financial information has gotten itself into the hand of criminals. So you end up being sought by police for actions and crimes you didn't commit. So, and that tells us it's very critical to safeguard some of these sensitive information because we don't know the hands that this information will fall to. And after that, we may not be able actually to recover from the impact or from the repercussions of such an attack. So those are just but a few of the major costs that we have to incur if we don't really have robust measures in place to safeguard our system. We also want to look at what are the common signs, the common indicators that really you as an individual, as an entrepreneur, you will be looking out to show you that things are not okay. We are under a cyber attack. And there are several, including unsuccessful login. Maybe you are trying to log in into your system, into your network. You are not able to do so. Sometimes you can log in even to your mobile phone, and you are not able to get into the system or into some apps. So I think my voice is not quite superior. I'm going to turn off my video so that I'm able to be clear enough. Okay, a minute. Okay, we can continue in the meantime as I check. So I was talking about some of the common signs that you can be looking out for that will tell you that things are not okay, you are under an attack. And I talked about unsuccessful logins. You are trying to log into a system, you are trying to log into your device, you cannot be able to do so. Sometimes you try to log in and your machine tells you, or your phone tells you that you have made several attempts, yet yourself you don't remember doing so. That tells you that somebody else is trying to get access into your machine. The other one is password change request. From just random request to change your password. So someone might be interfering with your system. Sometimes your account may be locked. You are not using them. The next minute you are trying to access, you are locked out. Sometimes you may observe new device login into your system with new IP addresses in some places that they are not even closer to where you are. That tells you that somebody is trying to access either your system or your documents. For example, we've had cases recently where Gmail accounts have been attacked, and if you don't have some mechanisms to ensure that such access is regulated, somebody can just log in and change the login details, and you can never be able to get into the system again, unless now you are facilitated to do so by the service provider. If, for example, you are in a business that usually sells merchandise online, you may observe some unusually large purchases. Maybe in a day you sell like 200 items. Then on this particular day, there are several large purchases. For example, they can be 500 or 1,000. That tells you that something is not quite okay and you need to check on the security of your devices. or your system, so to speak. The other thing is change in account details. So this has happened even in banks, for example. You want to check your bank balance, maybe through, for example, a mobile app, but you cannot be able to access. The account details have already been changed by somebody somewhere. So that tells you that you should be concerned. And when such happens, you need to be prompt enough to, for example, if it is a bank, you talk to your bank, so that if you are not the one who have initiated the change of the account details, they are able to block such external people trying to get into your account. For example, in SMEs, you may also get where if you have a system, if you have, for example, a local area network, sometimes you may get additional unauthorized users. You know the number maybe of the users you have in your organization, in your SME, but this day you observe that there are several new unauthorized users. It could be one, it could be two, it could be several, but they are not known to you. That tells you that somebody else has managed to get into your system, and as such, you need to revise your security measures that you have put up. The other one, which really happens in businesses that have customer reward program, you may get requests for new cards. So that means that somebody maybe is trying to change the details of the card by trying to get a new card. Meaning, if such can happen severally, or you notice such a trend, you need to be sure that something is really being checked with regards to the security of such or the integrity of such a program. Then we also need to check on how to mitigate some of these risks that we have seen here. What do we do to ensure that we are able to be above, we are ahead of these attackers? What do we need to do? And we have what we call best practices for cyber hygiene. And these are simple, they range from simple to complex. And for SMEs, I think they can have a plan that can work with their budget, that can work also with their size. And this means using such simple measures like password, use of strong passwords in their systems, and these passwords should be unique. It's not recommendable to have one password that is duplicated in different sites. So if you have a password for a mobile banking app, you should not have such a password also elsewhere. So if an attacker finds get access to such a password, they can compromise most of your other areas where you have stored your sensitive data. The other bit is use of multi-factor authentication. This has been quite helpful, especially in this era whereby application like your chat and even some sites like even your email, like Gmail, for example. A multi-factor authentication is to help you to link or to add a layer, another layer on top of your password, so that if somebody is trying to access or change the login details of your account, you are able to get a notification or a pop-up that will need you to authorize. Maybe it can be from your phone or from your desktop or elsewhere, that will now approve that it is actually you yourself who is trying to change. And if it is not you, you have an option of declining such a change. That's how a two-factor or multi-factor authentication can be of help. The other bit is system or software updates. If you are using antivirus softwares, you need to keep them up to date so that they are able to guard your data, your system against any threat, any threat. So you need to keep your antivirus softwares up to date so that any new threat that these attackers are devising out there, your system is well protected from that. The other bit that SMEs can do is to ensure that they do training to their staff and also create awareness. Like, for example, if such an attack happens, you need to train your employees how, first of all, to identify the attack. Then from there, they need to know how to respond. They have identified that really we are under a cyber attack. How do we respond? Then the other bit is also if we are dealing with sensitive data, for example, what does the law provide when we face an attack, a cybercrime of any nature? How are we supposed to respond according to the law? So you need to create that awareness within your organization, within your business, so that you have a standard approach on how you face such an occurrence when it happens. And this also helps you to recover faster if such an attack is executed successfully. Without a plan and without having the employees on the same level on how to do, on what to do and how to respond, then you're not going to recover very fast. The other mitigation measure is use of security tools and technologies. And just like the best practices for cyber hygiene, they range from simple to complex. So SMEs, they can choose a scheme or a plan that works for them in relation to their budget, their size, the industry they are in. And this will include, among others, they can use firewall, antivirus software. They can even use some other complex systems, including the intrusion detection system, to ensure that they keep at bay such attack. We also need, as SMEs, to have an incident response planning. We need to plan when we get such attacks. How do we respond? And this is connected to the employee training and awareness creation. We need to have a plan, a standard plan, or the procedures to follow when we have such incidents happening. We also need to back up our data. We need to duplicate what we are having elsewhere so that even if we are not able to recover data stored in a certain platform, at least we have another, we have plan B of the same data. And that also goes even to recovery. And it means that it will be a bit less costly having a backup, even if maybe we lose the other set of data, but having a backup will ensure that you are somehow safe because you have not lost everything, even though you may have to deal with some compliance issues and legal issues, but at least the data you will still have access to it. Finally, you need to have a system to monitor and review your cybersecurity strategy. You need to audit regularly how robust and how strong your system is in terms of how can it be able to keep at bay all these attacks that we have talked about. Sometimes we have seen that the attacks keeps on changing because the attackers are also trying to innovate, to be creative on how to attack. So you need to keep on also auditing your system, how robust, how up to date it is, so that you don't have an obsolete system that cannot keep you safe. Then we also need to understand the regulatory environment we are working in as SMEs. I started by saying that we cannot afford to claim that SMEs in Kenya, they are working like an island somewhere. They will not be affected by the global or the regional regulation. So we need to look at which are these regulations that our SMEs need to look out for purposes of compliance. And the first one I want to discuss is the General Data Protection Regulation from the EU. And these ones were drafted and passed in 2018. And they relate to all the EU member states. And they impose obligations on organizations everywhere in the world, so long as their target of data is on citizens from the EU. And non-compliance with these regulations, they attract very high penalties, up to 4% of the annual turnover of the company. And if you come to think about it, 4% of your turnover can be much and can do something else that would help your business rather than paying the fine. So the GDPR, or the General Data Protection Regulations of the EU, they have different principles that tend to guide the data processors and the data controllers on how to stay compliant with this regulation. Number one is lawfulness and transparency. So data controllers and data processors, they are required to process data lawfully, fairly, and in a transparent manner. They are also supposed to ensure that they do data minimization. They should not do processing of data beyond what is reasonably adequate for them to do so. The other thing is storage limitation. This one now guides on the length of the period that such data processors and controllers should keep data. So they should not keep data beyond the necessary periods. The other bit is accuracy. We need to process data that is accurate, right from the collection, processing, usage, and storage. We need to ensure that the data we are having is of highest integrity, it is accurate. Besides that, we also need to ensure that the data that the processors and the controllers are handling, it is handled for a legitimate purpose. So it should not be handled for illegitimate purposes. For example, to do things that are not legal within the EU, and also for the EU citizens. And lastly, we need to ensure the GDPR talks about integrity and confidentiality. Whoever is processing and controlling data that is related to EU citizens need to ensure that they observe integrity and confidentiality while they are doing so. Going to the next slide, what are the implications of the data controllers and data processors under the GDPR? We may think that since this is related to EU member states and their citizens, as SMEs in Kenya, this may not affect us. But in this era that we have taken our businesses online, sometimes we serve clients from even abroad. Take an example of a marketing agency or even hotels, tour agencies. Maybe tourists have come to visit some tourist sites in Kenya, and they are lodging at your restaurant or your hotel, and you are handling their data. How do you make sure that such data is safe? Because if such data lands into unsafe hands and it becomes a data protection and privacy issue, you can be sued under this GDPR. Meaning we should be on the lookout even to ensure that data we handle, the information we handle, the sensitive information we handle from all the people from even different countries, we make sure that it is safe. Also, some SMEs in this era that we have taken most of our businesses online, we may also be selling commodities and even services to EU citizens without being or without having a physical presence in those EU member states. And just like we would do if that was happening physically in Kenya, we need to be alert or to know that the people that we are serving, their data is protected by these guidelines and this regulation. And in any case, if we contravene the privacy and security of such data, it doesn't matter if we operate in Kenya physically, but if we process information and data for people that are EU citizens, wherever they are, and we end up exposing such information to data breaches, we are liable to fines and penalties that are related under this GDPR. Sometimes you may have a partnership as a business with EU-based organizations, and as such, that puts you also under this GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations of the EU. So you need to ensure that the data you are working with and how you handle it, you are compliant with this regulation. Going ahead, there are some common reasons why you may end up being penalized under the GDPR. Number one is failing to follow the guidelines for proper data processing, like we have seen in the principles. The other part is failing to get consent for the data being collected. If you are collecting data from an EU citizen of any nature, you need to get their consent. The other bit is failing to integrate measures that safeguard businesses from data breaches. You need to have measures to integrate measures within your organization, within your business, to ensure you don't expose such sensitive data to data breaches. The other bit is failing to adhere to data minimization. We have seen data minimization is one of the principles. So if you fail to adhere to that, that also can make you get penalized. And finally, failing to lawfully transfer data to third parties. Maybe there is a need to transfer data to third parties, and if that is to happen, it should happen lawfully. You should not do, you should not transfer data to third parties in a way that is not compliant with these regulations under the GDPR. So they are, sorry. So that is all about the GDPR. We started by globally, which are the regulations that we should look out for when we are doing business with diverse people. So globally, we looked at the GDPR. Regionally in Africa, we have what we call the AU, the Malabo Convention. Malabo is the capital city of Equatorial Guinea. This is where this convention occurred in 2014. And this particular convention came into effect this year in June 2023, after the 15th member states of the AU, that is Mauritania, ratified the implementation of these regulations in their country. It basically mirrors what we have seen in GDPR in terms of principles and even standards. Kenya is yet to ratify the deliberation or the agreements of this convention, but it is in the process as per President Ruto's sentiment earlier this year, that Kenya is in progress into ratifying and assessing the convention. But just to mention, the convention is actually operational as we speak, because the agreement was that when 15 member states have already ratified the convention, then it was supposed to begin being executed, and that has happened this year. So since our businesses may deal with clients that come from different countries in Africa, it is something that we need to familiarize ourselves with what the AU Convention on Data Protection and Security provides, so that we are compliant. And it spells out regulations on how to collect information, personal data and information, how to process it, how to transmit it, how we store it, and how even we use it. And it can be for a natural person, it can be for local communities, state, and even private and public bodies. So it's something that we need to look out for and understand how we can be able to be compliant. Finally, locally in Kenya, we have what we call the Data Protection Act, which came into effect in 2019. And it gives effect to Article 31C and D of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 on the right to privacy. And it gives regulations and guidelines to data controllers and data processors who handle personal data in Kenya. So data controllers, to define them, maybe you're asking yourself, who are data controllers and who are data processors? Data controllers means entities or individuals. They can be public, they can be private, who deal with personal data of individuals located in Kenya, and they determine the purpose of processing that data. They determine the purpose. That is what defines a data controller. They determine the purpose of that data. And the data controllers also have a direct relationship with data subjects. And we'll see this is the difference between data controllers and data processors. And data controllers, controlling of data could be for internal purposes, such as HR, payroll, or any other business that is a core activity of an organization, such as provision of professional services. Data processors, on the other hand, they entail a natural or a legal person, can be private or public, who process data on behalf of a data controller. So a data processor must have a contract with a data controller. And the data controller, we have seen that they are the ones that determine the purpose of processing data. So data processors receive instructions on what to do, how to process the data. And that means that they don't have a decision making power on the personal data they are handling, but they follow the guidelines that have been given by the data controllers. And in this act, it is very clear that an employee of an entity cannot be a data processor. So only an organization in that context can be a data processor, not the employee. So who is a data subject? So a data subject relates to an identifiable person who is the subject of the personal data that is being collected. And personal data, we know it is information that allows you to identify a person directly or indirectly. And it can be a person's name, location, an online username, or even an IP address. Those you can use to identify a person. And there are different items or sources of personal data that organizations handle. A hospital could be handling medical records. Medical records have personal data. A law firm can be handling court records. Court records, they also have sensitive personal data. A CPA firm, for example, we handle financial records and financial information, which also have some sensitive personal data. There are also psychological test results, just to mention a few. All these contain sensitive personal data. How can you know that you are a data controller? If you're a data controller, you decide to collect the personal data. You are the one who decides. You also decide the purpose. Why are you processing that data, and what is the outcome that you are looking at? The other bit that shows that you are a data controller is that you decide what kind of personal data should be collected. What kind of personal data should be collected? You also decide the individuals to collect the data. The data, for example, the data processors that you want to have a contract with, the data handlers you want to have a contract with, the people you want to put out there to collect specific data. You are the one who decides. And mostly, data controllers, they obtain commercial gain from the data they are processing or the data they are handling. And we have seen in the other slide that they have a direct relationship with the data subject. So data controllers, data controllers also mean that the data subjects are your employees. Data subjects are your employees. You can remember, we have said that an employee cannot be a data processor within the same organization. So data controller, the data subjects are your employees. That means that you are a data controller. The data controllers also make decisions about the individuals concerned as part of or as a result of the processing they are doing. They are the ones that are charged with the responsibility of ensuring professional judgment in the processing of the personal data. If you are the one exercising that professional judgment, it means that in that case you are a data controller. Then you have a complete autonomy as how as to how the personal data is processed. That means that you are data controller because you have that power. And also data controllers, they appoint or they select, they assign the data processors the role to process the personal data they are handling. We want also to look at who is a data processor. We have seen the data processors, they have an agreement or a contract with the data controller. And as such, they do not decide the purposes for the data they are handling. That is decided by the data controller. They also do not decide whether to disclose the data or to whom it should be disclosed to. And they do not also decide how long to retain the data. That is within the purview of a data controller. They may make some decisions on how the data is processed, but to implement these decisions under the contract with another entity, they may need to have an agreement. They have to agree. So the DPA, the Data Protection Act, gives certain obligations to data controllers and data processors within Kenya. This includes they need to notify the data subject before collecting and processing their data. They need to have consent. They need to have consent from the data subject before they collect or before even they process their personal data. They also need to minimize collection of data. That is one of the principles, even in the Data Protection Act 2019 of Kenya. They will also need to process data lawfully. And this is provided under Section 30 of the Data Protection Act. So they should not process data in any unlawful manner. They should be strict to what the Act provides. They also have a mandate to restrict further processing of data. So if the contract was to process data to a certain point or to a certain status, they are supposed to adhere to that. They should not go beyond that point. They should also be able to ensure data quality. The data they are handling, the data they are processing should be of high quality. They should not have any integrity issues. And they are also obligated to establish and maintain security safeguards to protect personal data. Meaning, they should have systems in place to ensure that the data they are handling is safe and is not likely to fall into hands of people who may use it for other unlawful practices. They are also obligated to retain the data they are handling only for a reasonable purpose and only for a reasonable period. They should not retain it for so long for a period that is not unreasonable. And finally, they need to notify the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner and also the data subjects that are concerned of any security or breach to the data they are handling. And that should happen within 72 hours. So, for example, if we are holding data of a certain client and out of a malicious attack into our systems, the attackers were able to access that information, we need to inform that client within 72 hours and do the same to the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner. And later on, we may see the repercussions if we fail to do so. Moving ahead, we want to see examples, what has been happening around in this topic that we are discussing. The Office of Data Protection Commissioner can find you hugely, like we have seen this past week. Actually, within this week, if you fail to adhere to the guidelines under this act. And upon conviction of such an offense, you may be fined, you may be penalized of a sum of 3 million or imprisonment, or even both, if you fail to adhere to such regulation. And just recently, it was recorded in one of the daily, the business daily on Wednesday 20 this month. Naivas Supermarket was fined by the Office of the Data Protection Commission for exposing customer data, which was sensitive, to attackers, and they had to be penalized for the act, because the act is very clear on how that should happen. So what was reported on that day was that the supermarket did not notify the persons who were affected in time within the 72 hours that we have observed. And also they did not notify the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner within the 72 hours window that is required by the law. And then during this week, I'm sure we also some fines that were imposed to some 3 organizations or businesses. One was a school, another one was a digital credit provider, and another one was a club around Nairobi, for failing to adhere to these data privacy rules. And the fines were huge. They were totaling to around 9.3 million. Meaning, if we don't really get to comply, there are serious repercussions in terms of the cost that we'll have to incur, the reputational damage, the fines that we'll have to pay, lost business, and so much more. So that calls us to be very sure of the robustness of our systems that we have in place, and also our awareness. Are we familiar with what we are supposed to do as per the law? So that calls us as SMEs to really take time to understand what the act requires us to do, especially when we are handling such sensitive personal data. Sorry. As an SME, you may be asking yourself how you can be compliant, how you can register. You want to look at how you can register as a data controller or as a data processor. And this can be determined by your annual turnover, to know where you fall and to know what you are supposed to pay for registration. This one is determined by your annual turnover or the revenue, the number of employees you have, whether a public or a private entity, whether a non-profit or a religious organization. And the act says that registration fee is between 4,000 and 40,000. And all entities within the private sector in Kenya that process personal data for persons located in Kenya, they could be citizens, residents, and visitors. They have that obligation to register as data controllers or data processors, or even both. You can be a data processor and data controller at the same time. Also, if you have an annual turnover of or revenue of between 5 million, of above 5 million, and you have more than 10 employees, you have to register as a data controller or as a data processor. That is the guidance that is given by the DP, the Data Protection Act. And these are the categories that all the data processors and the data controllers fall in. If your organization, if your business has between 1 and 50 employees, and your annual turnover revenue is up to 5 million, you are supposed to register with 4,000, which is once, you do it once, and you renew after every 2 years with 2,000 bob. That is for micro and small data processors and data controllers. Then the other tier is for the medium data controllers and processors. These ones, they should have employees between 51 and 99 employees, and their annual turnover or revenue should be between 5 million and 1 and 50 million. So the registration fee for that category is 16,000, done once and then renewed after every 2 years at a fee of 9,000. Then the last tier is for large data controllers and processors. These ones should have 99 employees and above, and their annual turnover or revenue should be more than 50 million. These ones are required by the Data Protection Act to register once at a fee of 40,000 and then renew the registration every 2 years at a fee of 25,000. So after covering all what we have covered, we are just recapping on what we've been able to learn and familiarize ourselves with. And we have found that a robust cybersecurity strategy for any business is very crucial, because if we fail to do so, we have seen the cost that we will have to incur. And the cybersecurity vulnerability can be a very costly affair. Like we have seen, the fines, they are huge. So if we tolerate vulnerabilities, if we are not thinking ahead, if we are not aware of the regulations that we should comply with, we may end up losing a lot of money in terms of legal suits, in terms of fines, and as such, we may not be able to have enough funds to do what should take our businesses ahead. And also we have observed that having an awareness, being familiar with those regulations that we have talked about, on how to comply with them. If we are not able to do that, then it means that every time we'll be gotten flat-footed by such occurrences. So we need to create that awareness to our staff, to our colleagues, so that we are always in compliance with these regulations. Because if we fail to do so, the cost is huge. And finally, we have seen the penalties and the fines that can be avoided through the compliance we have just talked about. So thank you so much. That is what we had with regard to this topic. Now we welcome any questions from the attendees of this webinar. Maybe Mercy, you can pick up and channel any questions that the members could be having.
Thank you so much, John, for such a wonderful presentation. I believe all of us have learned one or two things about data security and where we need to put more effort in terms of, or in our SMEs or in our businesses. I'm in the chat section area trying to see if we have questions raised. One from Samuel Gachui. He says the 331 million attacks were Kenyan only or worldwide? That is the data from KNBS. I think that is a question. We can try and answer that, John. I can see Jane Kim is saying that these are great insights. It's time we appreciate the effort put in place by the apps we use to keep ourselves safe, especially the two-step verification. I agree with you, Jane. It's high time that we ensure that we put all the measures that are necessary to ensure that we are safe online, given that our businesses have now moved to online. We now are selling to people we don't know. We are putting our information on social media, on our website, and so you don't know who is going to get that information and how. So you need to put the necessary measures to ensure that your data is safe for the sake of your business. And again, how we are going to use that data when you get it. Yes. So thank you so much. Maybe, John, you can answer that question. The 331 million attacks, whether they were for Kenya, is data for Kenyan only, or it was a worldwide data from
Thank you,
KNBS.
Moses. The data from KNBS related to Kenya. So the 331 million happened in Kenya. The 331 million attacks were Kenya, not worldwide.
Okay. Thank you. I hope Samuel is answered.
Must say I can put in a word or two.
Yes. Welcome, Dan.
Okay, thank you very much, John, for those good insights. I think you tackled the subject quite well, and I think it's of benefit to us, those who are running businesses or those who intend to run businesses. I was particularly impressed about the fact that we can be handling data. We could be data controllers, but you are operating as a business ordinarily, but you as a business person, you may not realize that you are a controller of data, and therefore the need to be very conscious about the requirements of the law, and therefore the need to protect yourself by being compliant and ensuring you are doing the necessary registration. That would be my comment. I think that was a very good presentation. Secondly, there is something I missed, and I don't know whether maybe the other participants may have missed. The last slide where we are talking of registration fees for SMEs. The criteria seems to be for turnover and the number of employees. Does it mean both or? I may have missed that bit. Whether it's and or. If, for example, you are talking of a micro, I think you talked of less than I don't know, there's 10 employees, and then a certain amount in terms of turnover. Is it and or? I think that one maybe I'd want to seek clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. If I can answer your question, the Act provides that for any data processor or controller to fit in a certain category, they must meet the two requirements in terms of turnover and also the number of employees they should have. So if you don't meet the two, then you don't belong to that category.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate. So it's basically the two. It's both must be met for one to qualify to be in that category. Thank you.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Rumbi, for that clarification. I cannot see any other question, but let me continue with my presentation. Meanwhile, we can be posting our questions on the chat section area. So I wanted to present on who exactly John Daniel and Partners are. So John Daniel and Partners LLP is an audit firm, and we are based here in Kilimani, and we normally have these webinars every month. We tackle topics that affect SMEs, and if you have been keen online, data security and data issues has been a key topic over the last 1 week or two. Yeah, and it is affecting SMEs. And so we thought, why not tackle this to empower our SMEs? So what we believe in John Daniel and Partners LLP is we believe in teamwork, integrity, and excellence. We believe we want to excel, we want to give the best that we can in terms of the services that we offer. So the main aim why we're in business is, or the reason why we're in business is to empower you or empower SMEs run their businesses. We want to tackle your financial issues as you concentrate on your core business, whether manufacturing, whether it's catering, whether it's dressmaking. We want you to concentrate in getting more sales as we also tackle your finance, because finance is also key in your business. If you don't tackle that, then your business will not go on well. So we are inspired when you excel as an SME, and that is why we even have these webinars, which are free of charge to our SMEs, so that they learn and succeed, because we know if you succeed, we also succeed. Our services include bookkeeping and accounting. As you may know, any other audit firm does internal or external audits. So we do both internal and external audits. We do tax advisory services and management advisory services. I talked of teamwork because it's a core value to us. And here in our team, we are comprised of multi-talented team or people or professionals. Some are those that like John Bumbi and many others that have not joined and others have joined. We are CPA K finalists, or we are CPA finalists, and I must say that we use a certain accounting software known as zero accounting software. I have mentioned earlier that we do bookkeeping and accounting. Nowadays, you don't do your bookkeeping and accounting in books for SMEs. We have moved online, and we are using softwares, and some of them are zero and many others. So for us, we are using zero accounting software, and the team is zero certified or is equipped with zero tools. We are passionate about business and consulting. John Daniel and Partners LLP is a partnership between two CPAs, that is CPA Daniel Chege and CPA John Buri. We have served various clients in different economic sectors, including one that is shouting in red, which is butter, and the government we are dealing with some projects with the government, merge systems, of eco-prime. These are many other clients that are not here. So we have not specified into one industry we are serving, or industry including schools, like for example, Melon Mission, Wema Melon or Melon Mission, which is a school. So when you come to us, our business approach is you come to us, we understand your needs, and if we are able, or that need is, we are able to solve that need, we are able to contract you, and then we plan on how we are going to solve that need, and then we continue discussing and consulting, and as a result, develop the relationship between you and John Daniel. And as a result, we also ensure that you succeed, because it's our desire that you as an SME, you succeed in your business, because if you succeed, we are also succeeding. Yeah, so that's just a brief of who we are. I thought it is good for me to mention that because you may we may go home thinking that we are an audit firm because of our LLP, but no, we are an accounting and audit firm. Yes, so thank you so much for joining today's seminar or webinar. We have a series of webinars, so we call them Wezesha SME Series. This is a set of webinars that will be coming to you every month. Be on the lookout in the social media platforms. We'll have the topics mentioned for every other month. So ensure that you join in and learn. Yeah, it is my desire or it's my hope that you have learned something from today's webinar and you will come in the next webinar. What we'll do is after this, we will be sharing the recording with you. I saw that no while Deba had asked for the slides. I'll be sharing the recording now to you, and I hope it's going to be helpful. So thank you so much. Hope to see you in the next webinar. Ensure that when you're coming in the next webinar, you come with a friend or with a business partner. Yeah, and share the information with your contacts and networks about an SME or Wezesha SME network. Thank you.
This is brought to you by John Daniel and Partners LLP.